Roxanne. You don't have to put on the red light.
Hi, Amos here, and today I've got a Roxanne. Not Sting's Roxanne, but Gerry Harvey's Roxanne. Gerry Harvey, that is, of Gerry Harvey Audio. And the Roxannes are his latest creation. And they come in both a universal and custom IEM version. And the custom IEM version is carbon fibre, amazingly enough, which is a first for custom in-ear monitors. And Gerry Harvey's always been a first person because he started the whole custom in-ear monitor trend when he was the sound guy for Van Halen, and Van Halen was, funnily enough, one of my favourite bands in high school. Actually, the first piece of vinyl I owned was Van Halen's OU812, and of course, embarrassingly, it was only a couple of years after I bought it I realised what the name meant. But anyway, so here they are. I've got Gerry Harvey very kindly lent us a pair of universal Roxannes to try and give feedback on. And he'd just been on a tour around Asia where he'd given away all his demo loaner pairs, and we're lucky, I think we got pretty much the last one. So they're unique in a number of ways, and a bit of history, of course. Gerry Harvey started the whole in-ear monitor thing as he had to he worked on or researched providing personal sound monitors for the members of Van Halen, and then went on to form Ultimate Ears, where they made custom in-ear monitors for performers. And I remember, I think the UE 11s were, I think they were about $1,100, which was a huge deal for a pair of in-ear monitors entirely back in when I started in Head 5, 2008, 2009. And since then it's become a bit of a trend to get a pair. And there are people offering them as cheap as about $200, which is pretty crazy, but arguably most people don't need custom in-ear monitors. I mean, they're designed for musicians so they don't fall out of your ears, basically. And you know, when performing and jumping around on stage, you don't really want your IEMs falling out, and anyone who's tried in-ear monitors will know that they can do that. Anyhow, since then he's been working on researching, improving the problems with in-ear monitors, and one of those problems is phase response and phase cancellation. Back when I first started investigating in-ear monitors for my own use, and I don't really like sticking anything in my ears, I noticed that most in-ear monitors had terrible reproduction of percussion, especially, and it turns out this was due to phase cancellation. Now, phase cancellation is a bit of a tricky thing. If you imagine that, you know, say if you take a frequency, a 1 kilohertz frequency is looks like a sine wave. You imagine a sine wave with a horizontal line through it. And that horizontal line is where it's at phase 0, so it oscillates between a positive and negative phase 1,000 times a second. And if you have other frequencies oscillating, you know, at there are, you know, if they're not all aligned, they're going to do a bit of they're going to cancel out a bit, and that's where you get the problems where the multiple drivers and a lot of IEMs were causing phase cancellation. So of course, the result of that was the JH13s, which I have my own pair here, Freak Phase, where he used carefully considered lengths of tube from the drivers, which you can sort of see in here, to ensure that the different frequencies would arrive at your ears in phase. And mine are completely clear, with just a bit of a thing with just a drawing on the back. And the result is percussion sounds excellent, and instruments sound excellent. They sound very realistic. But he's upped his game even further, with more drivers and a better design, to get even better phase response and more headroom and deal with the treble now, which is very, very tricky to get right in a pair of in-ear monitors. So these are acrylic. They're not the carbon fibre of the custom ones he's making. But another unique feature of them is the tuning system, which is attached to the cable. So you can, by turning the dial to the right with a small screwdriver, you can increase the mid-bass and treble, and from flat. So on this thing, if you have it set at 9 o'clock, which is where it should be now, turn it round to about 2 o'clock and it becomes the same as my JH13s, and turn it all the way around to 4 o'clock, you get the same kind of boost you get with JH16s. All the same though, when I tried them, they do have a flat frequency response intentionally, and that flat frequency response, if you ever listen to Odyssey headphones, so your LCD2s or LCD3s, they're rather like that. I think a flat frequency response, especially through the mid-bass, tends to make them sound a bit thick or heavy sounding, depending which way you like it, whichever word sounds sensible to you. And unlike, say, the Trilucent 1+2s, which have a bit of a slightly recessed mid-bass to give a bit of a sense of soundstage. Now, another thing with IEMs, of course, you can't have a soundstage because your outer ear is not being used, but our brain reacts to different frequencies as cue to give us our brain. Our brain takes different frequencies as cues as to the positioning of things around us. So you can sort of fake it with careful tuning. But so flat's going to sound always a little bit odd in a pair of headphones because we're not used to it. So sound-wise, they are, well, it wouldn't be too far off to say they sound like a pair of, say, LCD2s or LCD3s, but maybe with less perceived soundstage, a bit thick through the lower mids. Now, of course, with this adjustment box, you need a special cable. As you can see, it's got many wires going into it, although a normal plug. And Jerry's going to be providing the kit of this box plus these plugs for custom cable makers to make their own cables for the Roxanne, because obviously it's not a normal system. And if I unscrew this carefully, you will see that instead of the usual 2 pins going into the headphone, there are 4 for the system. It's completely balanced, and uniquely, of course, this is a usually the sockets on the IEM, the pins are on the cable. It's reversed in this case. The socket's on the cable, and you can see here the pins are in the IEM socket, which is probably a bit better in some respects. I mean, you can end up getting. I am very careful not to bend the pins on my JH13s, which can very easily happen. It's keyed, of course, so it only goes in one way, but if you turn it between wrong and turn it around, it goes pop. You see it drop down there when I do that. It's very easy to get back on. You don't have to screw it tight. It's a little bit stiff, so I have to use a little bit of force. But I'm told not to screw it tight at all. It'll just stay there nicely. Of course, you've got your memory wire here. Standard cable seems alright. I haven't had issue with it. I know some people like their aftermarket cables, and some people think, God, I've already spent $1,600 on an IEM. Why would I want to spend more money on bits of wire? Either way of thinking, I think it'll be alright. And now, these are not the standard tips either. Standard tips are your black silicone tips. I just have these tips on there because they're pretty funky. I'm going to show them off too in the video. I forgot the brand name. I'm going to have to hunt it down because I lost a piece of paper with the brand name on it. But they're interesting patented design. Can't speak today. Now you see here underneath the flange, you'll see, and the tube has an indent just above the orange section. You'll see an indent there. If you can see, it flexes very easily around that indent. And that means when it goes into your ear canal, because your ear canal has a bend, it'll flex very easily along that bend in whichever direction it happens to be. See, it flexes really, really easily there. And the result is immensely better comfort than regular silicone tips. But anyway, I just thought I'd show that off. The tip on this pair, and if it's going to be, if this is a production pair, if all the production pairs are like this, I'm going to say yes, this is actually good. Jerry told me that I think it was 1/8 of an inch from the end of your ear canal they're supposed to sit. And that probably means if I think I put the tips on too far the first time. These are smooth. There's no dent for the tip, which I think is better because then you can fine tune the positioning of whatever tips you like. I have Monster super gels and foamies and all that. I'm not a greater tip expert as like Joker or Average Joe, but I think I put them on way too far the first time. I think I pushed them too far down the first time, whereas now I don't push them all the way down. I leave a bit of a gap. Anyway, that ended up sitting perfectly in my ear, and the sound was just spot on. And that's the thing about the first the Freak Phase and then the Roxannes. I always found all IEMs tended to have something of an IEM sound, if that makes any sense. Every time I put IEMs in my ears, I felt like, well, I was listening with IEMs. And that's probably one of the things I least like about IEMs is they don't sound like full-size headphones. I mean, if you're in a noisy plane or on a train, I mean, you can just be grateful for the music. But there are times when, I do wish I could have less of something that sounds closed in. And apart from the fact that the kind of stronger than you used to with headphones mid bass tends to make the sound somewhat maybe it effectively muffles the highs a little bit. These are the least IEM like sounding IEMs I've ever used. I mean, they just don't sound like IEMs in the sense that, other than the fact that you don't get a soundstage, you don't get that kind of, I don't know how I could possibly describe it. You don't feel like the sound is compromised in terms of quality by them being IEMs. And I think that's the treble mainly. I know Jerry told me he'd been working on improving the treble quality because IEMs are very compromised in that regard. And I mean, that's one of the reasons you have multiple drivers. A single driver cannot cover the entire range of our hearing. 2 drivers, 3 drivers. The further you go, the more headroom you get. The better phase response you get. That's what he explained to me. And instruments are the best I've ever heard instruments have been from the Roxannes. I think second only the Fitia Parterres, if I said that right, for instruments for me. And I'm big on my jazz and classical sounding realistic. And I'm at the point now with these that I need better recordings. Seriously, I was just listening yesterday to some classical, and it was absolutely fantastic. As good as the recording was, and as good as on any headphones or speakers I can get without a extremely expensive system, I think. So he's definitely got to the point where he's definitely got to that I suppose the kind of point that Odyssey has gotten to as well with their full-sized headphones, where things just sound absolutely fantastic. And for me, though, I did, when I was listening a lot, tune down the mid-bass somewhere around between 100 and 200 hertz, down 5 to 10 dBs, because they were sounding a little bit thick for me in that regard. So, but otherwise, fantastic effort. If you do like the Odyssey House sound, and you like a pair of IEMs that do have something like that, these could be the way to go. If you want a little bit more boost in the mid-bass and treble, they will do that by adjusting this with a little screwdriver. A question that comes up a lot is, why don't they have knobs and not these tiny screws? And the answer is twofold. First of all, Jerry assumed that people would just adjust them to taste and then leave them that way, because they're not kind of like bass and treble controls in that sense. They're just a bit of fine-tuning for people's tastes. Second reason, of course, knobs are going to be a lot larger than these tiny trim pots that are in there, and would make this whole box considerably larger. He did say he did find larger pots which were accurate, but they were a lot larger. So that is the Roxannes in a nutshell. And again, thank you, Jerry, for lending me this pair. Listening to them has been an interesting experience, and my wallet is trembling in fear, that's to say that much. And I shall follow up in a bit with a look at a clear model so you can see what's inside them in more detail. Okay, here's the case. Not much space up close to do much, but if you've ever seen a JH13 case, nice milled aluminium, lovely stuff. Sorry, it's a bit dark here. Here are the regular tips, by the way, just your regular silicon tips, not a lot different. So it's quite dark here, you probably can't see them clearly, but not that exciting. It's kind of glasses size screwdriver, there you go, for adjusting. We've seen these these have come for me in little kits for stuff, actually. And your cleaning tool, regular cleaning tool for hooking out bits of earwax that have got stuck in the tubes. Now here's one he dropped in there, which is a clear Roxanne. Give me a second, let me just adjust the focus. There we go. There is a clear Roxanne with a bit of I think a bit of carbon fibre in there. So this one is a bit roughly finished. So there may be a few spots and specks on there, but it was just a demo. This one has a an edge on it for holding your tips in place, but I don't think that's necessary. I hope the production ones actually don't have it. The tips don't easily fall off. I mean, that's pulling quite hard and they don't fall off, so they're not going to fall off in your ear like that. My OnePlus 2s, the loaner I had, it was before he put on the big notch, and they fell off in my ears. But these ones, no, they're not going to fall. Regular ones, silicon tips aren't going to fall off at all. So this notch won't be necessary. But you can see the tubes there going in. You can see the multiple drivers, the crossover and other stuff. So there's 3 sets of drivers in there, and I think these ones may be wired in parallel, and that gives better phase response according to Jerry. But the result, I mean, good phase response sounds like the instruments don't sound. The instruments sound real, basically. Very good phase response means the instruments sound real and precise. Bad phase response means they sound not like instruments, unnatural, odd, percussion sounds off, all that kind of thing. And there we go. That's a Roxanne in the clear. And see you for the next video.